Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so as everybody knows, we are in the Champions Chess Tour, and it is the Magnus Carlsen Invitational. So we are on the third stop of the Champions Chess Tour, and we just got done with round one. I think they might have another game or two still going on, but we got Anish Giri got done. Wesley Jan Nepomniachtchi, which is this game here, just got done. Magnus Carlsen, I believe he won his first game. This was a really close game. Really came down to the wire. But to update you guys, I did change my chess legend down here. You guys might have noticed in the previous video to the great Eugenio, also known as Eugene Torre, Filipino chess grandmaster. One of the best players, really in all time. Really good friend of Bobby Fischer. So I figured, who better to change my stuff to than Eugene Torre. I had been doing a couple of his games recently, so I was like, hey, why not? It seemed appropriate. Anyway, so as we see, we have Wesley versus Jan Nepomniachtchi in this round one. So for all of my people that are coming from the Philippines, magandang umaga or magandang hapon. If it is morning or afternoon when you see this video, kamusta aking maga kaibagan, masaya akang mukita kang muli. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Mary Ming Salamat Po to you guys. Very much appreciative of you guys coming by and all the support I've gotten, subscriptions and everything. And if you are from Russia, privyet and spasibo to you for coming and taking a look at this video. I think so it's a nice game for you guys to be looking at. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and see what we got for this game. Just a touch. All right, cool. All right, so we have E4. We got G6, D4, bishop to G7. We have knight to C3 and D6. Now, we have the modern defense by black. And now, a lot of the times, you're going to see knight come into F6. You probably see like knight to F3. And then you'll see like a knight to F6 situation. You'll probably be going into like the Pierts. But this is a modern. It takes a little bit of a different form. So we see bishop to E3. And then we see A6. Queen to D2, we have B5, and we have castles for white. And so, as you guys already are starting to see, Jan Nepomniachtchi is not trying to castle on this side. He's trying to castle on this side because, he wouldn't be throwing his pawns all the way out here like this if he was going to be castling there. So, just going a few more moves. We see knight to D7, we see H4, we see H6, F3, and already as you guys are able to tell, as crazy as it sounds, I'm actually going to have to go back on what I said. But the way it looks like you're doing opposite side castling, right? And so it looks like, white is, starting to throw their pawns down this way. Or black is starting to throw their pawns down this way. White's starting to throw their pawns down this way. For a lot of you guys that play like dragons or something like that, this is very familiar to you. Or when you fiend kettle on this side and you castle and stuff like that, you're going to be throwing your pawns over on this side. And that's generally the way it goes. Like I said, I'm going to have to be eating my words because in a few short moves, you'll see that I actually was wrong. But we see knight to B6. We see bishop to D3. We see bishop to B7. We see knight to H3. We see E6. We see G4. Knight come into E7. And we see king to B1. And king to B1 is actually the novelty of the game. So this is the first time that this has been seen. As crazy as it sounds, this entire position, like the million pawn move game, has been seen before. And I can't recall what the move was in this position. I think it was a queen move, if I'm not mistaken, maybe queen to E1. But yeah, king to B1 has never been seen before. And like I said before, guys, whenever you have a whole bunch of knight moves, you have a bunch of pawn moves, you're going to be getting into novelty fairly quickly. So even as of 2021, we see king to B1 is a novelty there. And so we see knight to C6. We see knight to E2. We got queen to E7. We got knight to F2. And then we see castles by black. And so like I said before, I was like completely wrong because, you can't predict what these guys are doing at this level. But it really seemed like black was going to be castling kingside and not castling queenside. But you do have the bishop here. You have the knights defending. You kind of have the queen and the rook and stuff in the area. So it's not like the king has just castled and he's all the way over there on his own. He does have like quite a bit of protection in front of him. So, the fact that he's kind of damaged his structure a little bit with the pawns is not so significant. And the game is fairly even. White might have like a slight advantage, but it's not anything that's going to really determine the entire game. So we see B3. We have king to b8 by black. We have f4. And then we have a counter strike of f5 here. So we see h5, pawn takes e4, bishop takes e4. We see pawn takes h5, we see rook takes h5. You know, like I said, I mean, both sides are looking like they're doing pretty good. You're going to start to see these rooks start to come into the game. Some pawn pushes and stuff like that probably coming to try to chip away. Because right now, you know, you see white does have a nice little kind of, you know, space advantage a little bit here. So, you know, black's going to be working to try to chip away at that. So like the first move, rook h to f8. We see knight to d3, queen coming back to e8. We have rook to e1, knight coming back to e7. So bishop takes b7, king takes b7. We see knight to c3. So as you can see, black is working on, you know, trying to get their knight into a better square, you know, maximize their bishop, start to get, you know, these pawns rolling possibly. So the knight e comes to d5. We see knight taking d5, knight taking d5, and we see f5. And so as you can see, I mean, you know, black has done a little bit better to get their pieces in a better position. This knight is really beautifully placed. As you guys hear me talk about a lot, this is an octopus in the center of the board. So it is attacking and defending 8 different squares. So that is exactly where you want your knight. You know, not over here to the side on the rim. Make it grim. Right there in the middle. So this knight's doing pretty good, you know, as well. So, you know, like I said, it's fairly even. A little tactical situation comes up. So we have pawn takes f5, which actually does put this queen on the same, like right, you know, opposite the rook. But it ends up not being like the worst case scenario because, you know, there aren't like very many discoveries that you have that doesn't also counterattack your queen. So, for example, the best possible line that Wesley So actually goes into is bishop takes h6. Now, it looks pretty dangerous, pretty crazy for black because now the queen is directly attacked. But we do see bishop takes h6, and then this also puts a counterattack on this queen. So you're not going to be able to just win the queen here with, you know, no consequences because then your queen's going to get taken. So probably another try would have actually been bishop to g5, not going into exactly taking the pawn immediately. But then allowing, you know, maybe trying to go after the rook here, you know, after the discovery is dealt with. So that might have been a little bit of a better shot, but this is definitely one of the top moves as well. So the rook takes on h6, the queen moves itself out of the way, and then we see queen to g2, trying to place a little pin on this knight. It's kind of easily defended, so it's not like in a situation where, you know, you're going to be able to just outright win it. So we see pawn takes g4, knight to b4, and then we see c6. So like I said, I mean, there's not really a way to super exploit this pin because c6 can come, and then the queen's here and stuff like that. So, you know, it's not doing the craziest job. It's very accurate, but it's just there's not really a good way to really exploit, you know, that situation. Plus, you know, a5 can come, and you know, you're not really worried about the trades and stuff here. So we see knight taking d5, the queen takes d5. And then we see queen takes d4, or queen takes g4. We have rook to f7, queen to h4. We have rook f to d7. We have rook to e7. This is a nice move. You know, just as a question, I mean, you have rook h to h7 coming. So you definitely want to, you know, kind of do something to, you know, rectify that. So king comes to c7. And like I said, we see rook h to h7. And so we see c5 by black. Now, this is a slight inaccuracy by Nepomniachtchi. And there is actually a move in the position that exploits the inaccuracy of this move. If you want to go ahead and pause the video and see what Wesley So actually found. He actually found this move. I'm sitting there looking, waiting for him to find this move. And he actually found the move. So that's just a testament to how strong these players can play and how tactically strong they are. So like I said, if you want to go ahead and stop the video and see what Wesley So found, and it was really the only move. All other moves drew. So this was definitely very, very accurate, very computer move. So like I said, go ahead and stop it real quick and see if you can see what he actually played here. Okay, cool. So for those of you that noticed on a V shape that the queen can come here and then attack on this a5 square, you would have found the move queen to e1. Now, queen to e1, like I said, when you looked at all the other moves, they said triple zeros. Like Maurice Ashley, triple zeros, right? But this move gave about an extra pawn of advantage, just simply because it starts to force black to make very defensive moves. And that's what actually does happen. B4 is the first move that's played because it seems like it perfectly shuts down, white's attack. And what we saw actually in the game was a good try, but it was a little bit of an inaccurate follow-up. And we saw A3 in the game. And this unfortunately kind of gives black a crucial tempo to be able to kind of get out of the danger zone. And so after queen takes d4, pawn takes b4, the queen can come over and take on b4. So if I was to show you just like some alternatives to what that was, the best possible move in this position was actually a4. And what a4 does is it puts black in a position to where they can't just take immediately here, because if they were to do that, if they were to take queen takes d4, they would be running into queen to e6. And there isn't a way to defend all the pressure and the pins that are on this king, right? So that's definitely not something that you want to do. Also, if you were to take pawn takes c4, you would be running into queen takes b4, and then you have a lot of issues here as well. You have some trades coming here. This pawn is weak. So that's definitely not where you want to be. And then you have a healthy pawn structure, and then you have a damaged one. So you don't want that to be your situation. Also, something else after a4, probably one of the best tries was going to be actually pushing the pawn to a5. But the rook would take on d7, the rook would take on d7, and you would see rook to h8. And then, you would be having some problems on this back rank kind of issue situation. You're going to be looking at some infiltration here with the queen and stuff like that, because this queen is kind of cut off. So you definitely don't want that to be the situation. So let me see what this one was. And yeah, if you had simple, like I said, if you did just take on, on a3 en passant, you would be seeing queen to a5 with check. The king would come up, and then after queen takes a6 with check, you are in a very, very pickly situation because, you can't really cover with anything because you're just going to be pretty much losing. Of course, rook covers here, that's just going to be taken with the other rook, and then it's going to be checkmating. So queen coming back to b7 is more of the same. You're going to be deflecting the king away. And after rook takes, you're going to have rook takes, and that's just going to be a clean piece. If the king takes, that's just going to be the same thing. You're going to be up an entire piece, so we don't want to do that. So like I said, we did see a3. The queen took on d4, pawn took b4. We saw queen taking b4, and then we saw queen to e6. The major difference in this particular position is the fact that the queen can actually come back to b5 and defend queen to e6. So it is not a killer move like it would have been in other variations that I showed you guys. So we saw king to b2, the queen to c6. We saw c4 trying to make sure that we prevent any d5 movements. The rook took on e7, the rook took on e7, the rook came to d7, and you don't really want to trade, even though in a rook endgame, it's not like the end of the world to be down a pawn. It's not really beneficial for you to go into a trade. It's gonna put you kind of in a really defensive position. You don't want that. So we saw rook to e8, the king came to b7, the queen came to g8, the king went to a7, we saw queen to h8, queen to b7, we saw rook to e2, rook to f7, we saw queen to d8, very accurate. The rook came to d7, and we saw queen coming to h8. And this actually allows a5. And so you're starting to see that black is starting to get their pawns rolling, because what they want to do is they want to damage this structure, and they want to try to open some lines for their pieces, right? So the queen came to e8, and then that actually allowed a4. And as you can see, it's looking really, really bad here on this position here. So something that was actually a little bit better after a5 would have been actually queen to c3, just kind of defending and making this impossible, to push the pawn here, or just like king to a2. And then now you don't have a pin situation going on, you're going to be able to, do some defensive work. So like I said, we did see queen to e8, a4, rook came to e3, we saw d5, and then we saw queen to f8. Something that would actually been a little stronger was actually rook to d3, preventing the taking here, because we're going to be pinning the queen here, and that's going to be kind of bad. So after queen to f8, we saw the really, really accurate queen to b4 move. And this was this was actually the start of like a downhill sequence. And it started making things really, really rough for Wesley So, because you are looking at a check here. So you have to do something about that. So the rook comes to e7. Rook to d3. Actually wasn't possible there. Yeah. Or actually, you know, rook to d3 was possible here as well in the situation. But we saw rook to e7. Queen took b3. King to a1. We saw queen to c3 with check. King to b1. Queen to d3 with check. King to a1. We saw queen to d1 with check. King to b2. a3 with check. King takes a3. Queen to c1 with check. King to a2. Bishop or queen to c4 with check. We saw king to a1, and then we saw queen to a6. And it was actually, unfortunately, in this position that Wesley So did resign. So it was a very well played game by Jan Nepomniachtchi. You know, Wesley So definitely had some chances, but you know, he did go down in this first game, unfortunately, for all of my people in the Philippines. So I appreciate you guys stopping by. You know, Maraming Salamat Po, Aking Maga Kaibagan. Spasibo for anybody that might be looking from Russia, and I will be making another video here in the next hour or two when this next round comes through, and hopefully Wesley So does a little bit better in this second time around. But I will see you guys next time. All right.